What's up, everyone? It's Matt Mrozik, and this will be the next project, another Hulk, but this is going to be a repaint. So I'm usually not real hype on repaints for a couple of reasons. Usually they're more work than a kit because there's a lot more masking involved. A lot of times they don't come apart. This one I don't think is going to be too crazy, knock on wood, because it's 1/6 scale, so it's smaller. It's all one piece, but the way it's sculpted, it's the masking should be relatively easy to get to and stuff. So this is a Kotobukiya 1/6 scale Hulk out of their classic Avengers line. This is number, let's see, in the series there's 4,000 pieces made, and this is number 2252. And so what we're going to do on this piece is, my client liked the way I painted the first Kirby Graven Labs Hulk, so we're going to go with that kind of tone. So this sculpt on this is really, really nice, but the paint is pretty boring. It's flat. There's really no shade. There's a little bit of shading in the green, but not much. I would say the best part of this, as far as paint-wise, is the hair. After that, everything else needs work. So this is going to get a complete repaint, base, everything. And we're going to go with that kind of, you know, olive green style I did on the first Graven Labs Kirby Hulk. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of show you this piece in general. Love the sculpt. It's not huge. Even at 1/6 scale, it seems kind of small to me, but I figure a 1/6 scale Hulk would be bigger than this because the quarter scales are huge. But so at 1/6 scale, he's right at the tallest part is going to be his shoulder, actually, right here. So at 1/6 scale, he's right at about, oh, I'm going to say 14 inches tall. The depth is right at about 11.5 inches tall. And the width, which is from here to outside of this hand, is going to be about 12 inches. So great size piece. I think unfortunately 1/6 scale stuff gets kind of overlooked in the collecting world. All these guys want these big ass pieces. They think size matters when it comes to statues, but I think they're missing out on a lot of great stuff. I love the sculpt on this. I think this might be an Eric Sosa sculpt. I'm not sure. It doesn't say it on the box or anything who sculpted this, so, but I could be wrong. But I think it might be an Eric Sosa sculpt. I actually love the portrait on him. Let's come down and look at the portrait a little bit. Great expression. But his eyes need work, his teeth need work. It just needs a repaint. You know, it's a factory job, and they're making 4,000 of these. They can't spend 20, 30 hours on one piece. They have to crank them out. But the sculpt is great. I think with the new paint job, it's going to look even better. So we're going to go with kind of that dark green with all that noodling and veining underneath. So the first thing I got to do to this is I'm going to give it a bath. Well, actually, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to give it a light sanding with a sanding sponge. Then I'm going to give it a bath, and then I'm going to give it a light coat of primer of the Badger's green style res. And then we'll do the skin first. Then we'll do you know, the hair and everything, and the pants, and then we are going to do the base a little bit because he's going to pair these up with the Iron Studios 1/10 scale pieces, and they just have a simple black base, but we are going to make the base look a little bit better too. So hopefully by the time we're done, we have a great sculpt with a better paint job, and it just will do the sculpt some justice because the paint's lacking. You know, just like the nails are all the same colors of skin. There's a very little bit of shading in the pants. But yeah, the sculpt's great. It just needs some better paint. So when we come back, we will start getting some prep on this and some primer. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do on this guy is, even though he's kind of matte, he's got a matte finish, he's not super shiny, I'm going to give it a light sanding with a 3M ultra fine sanding sponge. And this is going to just give him some tooth. You know, roughen up the surface a little bit, and it's going to be just super light. I don't need to take the paint off. Just go in here. And I'm not going to show a whole lot of this on camera. There's going to be just one video on this guy. And I'm just going to go in and make sure we give him a light scuffing. And this will give the piece some tooth or something for the paint to grip to a little bit easier. Basically just kind of giving it a wipe. I do go through the paint, it's no big deal. And this paint actually has no top coat on it because it's coming off with color. So there's no, this is just flat paint. Like this hasn't been sealed at all. So the factory just uses paint and doesn't look like they seal it. But it holds up. So they're, they're probably using a lead-based, these guys in China probably use lead-based paints, which are much more durable, but you can't use lead-based paints in the US anymore. Those got outlawed, I believe, in the 80s, maybe in the 70s. Can't use lead-based paints anymore because they're super harmful for you, more harmful than lacquers or enamels. So where this little scuffing is going to do the most is like on these pants. They have a little sheen to them. I want to make sure that when I spray my paint, it's going to stick. So we're going to hit those probably a little harder than the green skin. So I'm going to go around and do this, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so I gave it a light sanding. I wish I would have put my apron on because my sweatshirt is all green. You can't tell the difference in camera, but sanded them down pretty good. I went through the paint in some areas on the purple, which is no big deal because it's all going to get primed anyway. So let's put that to the side. I'm going to give that a bath here in a minute with a scrub brush and some soapy water. Now for the base, it has this factory label on the bottom, and I want to preserve that for when I paint this. Now it looks like this is painted on. I don't think this is a sticker. This is stickers. They're super, super thin. But I want to preserve this while I paint, so I'm going to tape over it so I don't mess it up. And for that, we'll just use our, let's see if I got enough of this. If not, I'll use this. So I just take big pieces of hobby tape and mask over it and make it bigger than the base, and like they'll cut around the edge, and that'll help preserve this label from getting paint on it. It should be a nice little project. I'm usually not a fan of repaints. I've done a few, and like someone just asked me to repaint 2 custom Weapon X Wolverines, and I think my quote to repaint those was higher than if it was a kit because he's got all that stuff. There's a lot of masking. The masking goes through the roof on our pre-paint. This guy's isn't too bad because if this was like a kit version, the only thing I would see is that the torso, similar to the grab and last, the torso and the legs would be 2 separate pieces. And then you just have to work with them that way. The fact that these are together is not that big of a deal. In fact, I'd be surprised if on the production pieces, if it was casted in 2 pieces and painted as 2 pieces, I would almost guarantee that when they did the production, it was 1 piece when they painted it. So, not the end of the world on this guy. Come on. Oh, come on. There we go. This stuff, once you get a tear down the middle, you can't salvage it. Almost out of this tape, which is fine. And it rolls. So I'll show you what I do here. Now, this guy asked me if I had a sticker, I could put, my own sticker, and I do, but then it would cover up all this stuff from Kotobukiya. So I'm just going to throw it in the box. If he wants to throw it on the bottom, he can. That's a lot of times what I do. I have my own like little stickers with my logo on and stuff. If it's a kit, like a Naren kit, I'll throw it on the bottom because it doesn't come with a label. But if it's a custom kit, I won't throw it on the label. I'll throw some in the box, and if the client wants to throw the sticker away or put it on the bottom, that's fine. But hopefully they keep the stickers because they're not cheap. When you're only buying 100 stickers at a time, the cost per sticker is not that cheap. And if I bought like 10,000, then the cost per sticker would be pretty good, but I'm not buying that many stickers. I actually need to get some more labels. So I have big labels that have my logo and it says painted by and the date. So I can do that. So now what I do to trim the tape, what I do is I come along with a brand new blade. And just kind of cut like this. And follow the shape. Like so. And come back and get any excess off. I'm going to cut this off, get this all taken care of, and I'm going to get the base primed in some black. So I'm going to give the Hulk a bath in soapy water, get this tape cut, and then we'll do some priming. Alright, so I gave him a bath, dried him down with a hair dryer, and got the base tape. I'll do a little bit of priming out here, but then I'll do the rest in the spray booth. I got Badger, green style resin my brush. You really got to crank the air pressure up on this, at least I do, because it's pretty thick. I got a small needle here, but it's good primer, I like it. And this is like the perfect base coat for Hulk. So I'm just going to prime over everything, mainly the skin. I don't care about anything else, that's all going to get repainted. So I put it on wet because I want to avoid dry spray. Particularly on these things where it's all one piece, it's really hard to get smooth paint like around the neckline and in the ears, because it's real easy to get dry spray and you don't want to get dry spray. That just affects your surface and you're fighting it. So I strained this primer because it's notoriously chunky. I asked him Badger once, how do I prevent chunks in my primer? He's like, shake it more. So I strain it. So I put this on pretty wet. Now the bottle says you can wait 8 minutes and you can start priming. I like to wait at least an hour. More than likely I'll let this sit overnight. And then I'll do a tape test on it just to make sure I've got good adhesion. I probably won't use any masking tape when I mask, but I like to do a tape test before I do any major painting to make sure I've got good adhesion. Even then, every once in a while I get a little bit of lifting. But if I can put a couple pieces of tape on in areas and rip it off, and the primer doesn't come off, that means at least I've got good adhesion down to the initial surface. So that's why I do that. So I'd rather wait overnight, let the primer really have a chance to bite and dry. Now another thing you could use in doing a pre-paint, which I don't have any right now, some self-etching primer. I've used rattle cans before, but that's really hard to get on wet all at one time. Probably my go-to self-etching primer when I ever do use it is Mr. Surfacer Resin Primer. It's really stinky, it's expensive, but you put it in an airbrush, it goes on wet, and it does a good job of giving you an etching primer. I used to use that all the time on my resin, but then I realized I didn't need to use the resin primer. I just realized if I did my prep work was good enough, then I didn't need it. So I just made sure to make really good prep work. So I want to make sure I have a pretty good even coat of this on this. I want this an even tone, since it's a complete repaint. Actually, I can do this priming out here because even though I got the air pressure turned up, I'm close enough that all the primer's going on the surface is not going into the air too bad. So when you spray Badger style resin, like, man, that's really thick. It's going to cover up my details. as this dries, it shrinks really nicely into any details you have. So it might look like it's going on thick, but it dries nicely and shrinks nicely into any details you have. I haven't used it on any style, any plastic kits yet, because I haven't built a plastic kit in years. I think the last plastic kit, full plastic kit I built was probably been 5 years. Even the Gundam stuff I built has been all resin. 90% of it's been resin. A little plastic here and there, but I actually need to buy some more air hoses. My air hose in my spray booth, or Quick Connect. The Quick Connect is no longer holding. So I'm going to spray this top part, I'm let it dry for a while, put on the base, and then I'll work on the bottom part so I can handle it a little bit better. Right now I got to be able to get underneath the armpits and stuff, so that's why I'm doing the top first. So the trick when you're doing anything like this is all one piece, and a similar problem with the Grab and Labs piece I just did, is that when it's all one piece, it is really hard to get paint in some areas. Sometimes it's impossible to get paint in a couple areas because you can't get the airbrush at the right angle. So sometimes you have to, it's more when you're doing shading. So sometimes you just have to kind of do your best to get the paint up in there. So like right now in this piece, my palm areas are going to be right up here under this armpit, getting paint up in there. At least doing any shading. I can't really get the airbrush at the right angle. And I mean, without turning up the air pressure big time and just hosing the paint on like I'm doing now, it's gonna be hard to get paint up there, so. This is a heavy piece for 160. My arm's getting tired just holding it. It's not solid, I know that. I can tell from when I was getting in the bath, I could hear that it's hollow. But it's got some weight to it. So right now my air pressure is cranked up to about 30, which is pretty high for me. But this downward spray is really good at a high air pressure. It atomizes well, it forces it through the airbrush, especially on these. I'm using my Iwata HPTHs. Those have a bigger needle, so I'll crank up the air pressure just so I can get it on wet and fast and smooth. Okay, so there's the upper half primed. So you can see it's pretty wet. So I'm gonna let that dry for, I don't know, 15-20 minutes, and then I'll work on the bottom half. And then, like I said, I won't probably do any real painting till tomorrow. So, you know, it's Sunday night. It's a good time. It's 8 o'clock at night or so. So it's a good time to do this, because it'll give this a good, she's like 6:30 here. It'll give it a good, 18 hours to cure. So I'll do the bottom next, and I'll throw some primer on the base. I'll just do some black primer on that. I don't need to show that. It's just going to be a black flat rattle can. And then when we come back tomorrow, we'll start painting. Sorry, I had to turn my mic on. Alright, so here we are, next day, primer's dried overnight, and we're ready to start spraying some paint. So, hit this with green Stano Res yesterday, hit the base with just some rattle can flat black. So let's start working on the skin here. So, my client sent me some photos of what he wants, and it's kind of it's a little different take on the first Grab and Labs kind of curvy thing I did. kind of do the same steps, so we're not going to make it dark, a little more on the olive side. So let me see if I can in a spot where you guys can see at least. Okay, so I thought I was recording, but maybe not. So it's next day. Primed everything last night, dried overnight. Now we're going to go in and start doing some painting. And as was before, we're going to do this kind of like the darker version I did of the grabbing glass, but a little different, a little on the brighter side, a little more olive than army green. So right now I got Mr. Color, Mr. Color 67 purple with my airbrush. And again, I'll just do a little bit of this on camera. And we're going to go in here and make it smaller since it's a smaller scale. And we're going to noodle away. And this is going to give the fleshy look underneath between this and the red we're going to do. Lots of squiggles. The closer you get, the smaller the line is, the tighter it is. So, with it being this scale, I'm going to stay pretty close to the surface. And the more random you make it, the better it's going to look. You probably can't see what I'm doing because it's blown out in the camera, but I'll get in. I'll show you in a second. I'm getting close. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to do my tape test. I always got to do that before I start painting, just to make sure I've got good adhesion. So when I do that, I just take a piece of Tamiya tape or highway tape. I'll stick it on somewhere, rub it on, and rip it off. And then if it doesn't come off, that means I've got good adhesion. Okay, so I'm happy. I wasn't expecting it to come off, but you never know. There could be a contamination on the piece that you just can't get. Sometimes you can't get off. It's a good idea to make sure you have good adhesion before you start doing a bunch of stuff in painting and realize you got to strip it down and start over, which I've had to do before. It's not fun. Okay, so let me show you what I'm doing here. So you see all the squiggles. So we're just going to do that all over the statue. And then when I'm done with that, I'll come back. Okay, so got the purple done. Took about an hour. And now we're going to go in and we're going to do some red. And for that, I'm using Mr. Color number 68 Red Matter. Not an M-A-T-E-R, but M-A-D-D-E-R. Not matter like. Matter like. Anyway. So we're going to kind of do the same thing here. I'll show you a little bit here on camera. You know, I'll do the rest off. But again, I'm just going to kind of go in here and... Oop, too much coming out. Like this. And this is going to give it that kind of fleshy look as we build up the other layers of green on top of this. Don't do as much red. The red seems to go a lot further as far as the effect goes. So I kind of get the idea. I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so I got my 9-step process here for this Hulk skin. So next in the airbrush is Mr. Color number 18. This is green black, and I'm going to lightly hit the shadows a little bit, start bringing out those details. And what I like to do when I start doing this, I like to kind of get lights just coming from the side like this, so I can see all the details. Because if I have light coming from every direction, I can't see the shapes of the muscle. So having a really hard light from one direction shows you where all the muscles are. So I'm going to turn my air pressure down a little bit. I got it cranked up quite a bit. I got it cranked up this way from the demo res. Yeah, thin this a little more. Now, this is where it gets a little hard because since this is all one piece, getting into some of these areas is going to be tricky. So it's where we do our best to get paint in the hard to reach areas. I'm trying to get the paint coming out. Thin it a little more. I thought I had thinned enough, but maybe not. Really have it a little too thin. I just made my layers more translucent. Here we go. Okay. This is color number 18, black green. And like I said, I'll show a little bit on camera. Do the rest off and show what it looks like. So after I do these, I'm going to go in and I'll probably do the veins next. Do a little. So this process will take a while. Just because this is where we start going in and tightening things up a little bit. I'm going to back off so the muscles are a little softer. I'm not sure if you can see what I'm doing there. Oh, I got my light set up, but there's little muscles on the shoulders and stuff. You hit those lightly. Nice big muzzle here. We're going to back off and make it softer. So that's the idea. Go in and get all muscles done, all the shadows, and then we'll move on to the next step, which will be So on this, I do the highlights, and then I do the veins, and then I kind of mist it down. So we'll do that. So after I get the shadows done, we'll come down and do some highlighting. Okay, so I went into the shadows with the black green and looking really good. So now we're starting to see some of the muscles. Now I'm going to go in with some Mr. Color number 27 interior green. Just hit some of the high spots. Again, I'll just do a little bit on camera and then do the rest off because I got to be able to move around. But yeah, make this into some more. I always think I have it thinned right, and then I go to spray it and I don't. Let's try that. Open my airbrush a little bit. Come on. It was just spraying. Where'd my needle? I'm gonna pause and grab it. I dropped my needle guard. I need to find that because they're expensive. Come on. I'll be back when I get the spraying. Okay, finally got the paint thinned and everything the way I want. So just going in here and hitting the highlights. Like so. Anywhere there's a muscle, I hit the top of it. And I think what I'm going to do for the veins, I'm going to go, and after I do this, I'll go hit the veins. Actually, I may hit the veins now so they're more buried. We're going to go with the brighter veins on this guy. The client was really specific on he wanted the veins to really pop. So we had a discussion last night, well, do you want them darker or do you want them brighter? So again, it's kind of getting that terminology down so we're both on the same page. So when I think of the veins wanting to pop out, be more prominent, you want them brighter, even though realistically they should be darker. So we're I'm gonna do them a little bit, I'm gonna kind of maybe use this interior green to go over them again. Let's see. And then start burying them. Now it's gonna be, something's gonna be really hard to get to. You can see there on the arm, it's pretty noticeable. I think when I come out to a vein, I'll just hit it a little harder. And then that'll get toned down as I start blending things in, but that's just kind of to establish it, like you want it here. They're going to look a little funky at first until we start burying them. Some wrinkles right here, we're going to hit the top of those. So again, this process takes a while. It's just slowly building it up. But this is starting to look really good. Get that really good fleshy look. We're not going as dark as we did on as I did on that first Grandma Labs Kirby Solid Hull. So when I go to blend these in, I'll blend them a little brighter. I get the bigger muscles, I'll open up my airbrush a little bit so I get a softer look. So that's the plan. So I'm going to go through and do that, and when I'm done with the highlights, I'll come back, we'll take a look at it. Alright, so I wanted to show you that when I'm like doing the face like this and it's super tight, I take off the needle guard on my airbrush, so I get really close and get in there, because the needle guard prevents you from getting like real close to the surface. But if you take it off, you just gotta be careful. And then just super lightly, I mean, there's barely any paint coming out. And I use two hands to steady the airbrush. I just slowly build up the highlights like this. As you can see here, I got all the little wrinkles and everything highlighted. If I want something really bright, I just kind of hit the airbrush just there, hold it there just for a second, like the top of the nose here. A little wrinkle right there, we'll hit that. The side of the nose, a little wrinkle. This is where thinning your paint is like crucial to do stuff like this, because if it's not thinned correctly, it's not going to come out of the airbrush. And you're not going to get the, you're not going to be able to get these really tight details. So that's looking pretty good. Again, once I blend this all in, it'll look better. But so I try to use two hands to steady, especially when I'm doing something like really right here on top of this jawline. And back up here, this is getting softer. This jawline part is a little softer. If I back up, not so tight. Just build it up slowly. This is where we really start to see the details in the face. In the original paint, you didn't see any of these details because it was all flat. And they didn't, the factory's not going to take the time to go in here and do this. Top of the ear, earlobe, inside the ears, some folds. We're gonna hit those. I'll use the lip. Sometimes you can't see what I'm doing because the way it's gotten tilted, but I think you get the idea. So just getting real tight, take the needle guard off, make sure your paint is basically almost water, and you get in there and do some really tight details like this. And it looks awesome because it really brings up the sculpt. Okay, well again, that took forever. It took about 3.5 hours to do that. So it's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just take some of this the same interior green. It's like I'm going to do a little different steps than I did on that darker Ground Light Sculpt, because the tone is not quite as army green. It's more, I don't know, again, my client says olive drab, but it's olive green, but it's not olive green. It's more of a, it's kind of this greenish, which is closer to like a light hunter green. So what I'm going to do now is I think I'm just going to mist a little bit of this on over everything. Just real light. And then I'm going to go get the next green. I'm going to mist it on, and we're going to shift this color. Normally I do this in a spray booth since I'm kind of misting and there's a lot of paint on the air, but just want to tie everything together a little bit more. This guy has a ton of veins. This has probably more veins than any other Hulk I've done. I spent so much time doing the veins. There's a lot of them. So this is just going to kind of help tie things a little bit together a little more. And then the next step will kind of really bury all those noodling and get the veins under the skin. And then we might have to go back and hit the shadows again a little bit, and we'll see. But I won't use the black green, I'll use a different color. It's looking really good. I think the face looks really good, but this sculpt is really nice. You would never know how nice the sculpt was from the factory paint job because they didn't go in and do all the detail work. It's a great sculpt. They did a good job on it. Love the face. Okay. Let this dry for a minute or so. I'm going to clean out my airbrush and then we're going to get the next color and we'll mist that on. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm misting on some Mr. Color GX number 6. I mixed in some of the number 27. So I'm going to have this kind of green going on. I've already misted on like one coat, maybe 2 coats. And it's looking pretty close to the reference I've got. The reference that I've got, they didn't go in and hit every little muscle. They didn't go as much detail as I did, but the colors are looking pretty good. So again, I'm just going to keep misting this on, and I'm just going to just kind of bury everything we did. Make the skins look under the skin, the vein, all the noodling we did earlier. Kind of bury that a little bit. I'm just going to keep doing this until I get a look I want, and then we'll see. I'll have to probably miss some more colors on, different tones and stuff to kind of bury everything. And I'll probably go and hit the shadows again, just a little bit. I don't want this as contrasty. I'm looking at the reference I have and it's not real punchy. The reference actually isn't that great of a paint job, but the colors are nice. So I'm going to continue doing this, and then when I'm satisfied, I'll come back. Alrighty, so I missed it on a couple coats of that, and I'm digging it, but I'm going to go back and kind of hit the highlights a little bit more, back with the number 27, relatively quickly, and then I'm going to blend in that color again. Get the veins again real quick. I'm not going to go over them crazy like I did last time. I hit the highlights again. I'm not going to be as tight, just a little looser. And then I'm going to blend in again. So I'm going to do the highlights and then we'll come back. Okay, so I hit the highlights again, brought them up a little bit, and I'm going in and hitting the shadows a little bit with that GX number 6, the green mixed in with the number 27, super light. Yeah, it's just a lot of back and forth until I get what I wanted. I hit the veins very lightly before when I did the highlights too. So we're getting there. It's taking some time. Yeah, I'm just gonna hit the big, kind of the big muscles. I'm not gonna go in and hit all the little ones. I'm just doing this real light because I don't want to cover up my previous work. I just want to keep building up on the layers until I get the tone I want. And we're pretty close. Again, I'm giving a reference, and based on what the photos look like and the lighting, I have to kind of guesstimate sometimes what that looks like. So again, a lot of times when people send me something like, hey, I want it to look exactly like this, a lot of times they tell me you need to send it to that painter, because again, I'm not that painter, and even if that had the same colors and everything, it's not going to look the same. So got to hire a painter based on if you like their style. And then, because we all have our own styles. I mean, John Allred has a style, Ed Bradley has a style, Soul has a style. We all have our own style. It's just how we paint. So we're all gonna get different results. Even if you gave us all the same colors and tools. So, but it's starting to look really good, I think. So I'm gonna continue with this, and then I'll probably seal it and take a look. Okay, so I think I got the skin where I need it. So I'm gonna send a photo of this to my client and see what he thinks. I think it looks really good. It's same tones as what he sent me, but with my style on it. So, you know, when it hit all the muscles, hit all the veins, lots of back and forth between that highlight color and that custom mixed shadow color. So I had both airbrushes going. I would hit the highlights and then kind of blend it in again and just go back and forth until I got the look I wanted. And with the flat coat on it, the shading looks really good. So it stands out really nicely. So send a photo of this to him and see what he says, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I sent some photos to my client, and we're gonna shift the color ever so slightly. I'm gonna mist on a very light coat of Mr. Color 304 Olive Drab. And this is just gonna kind of tone it down just a little bit and add just a hint of kind of tan to it. We'll see what this does. This is already thin. This has been sealed, which really shows off the shading really nicely. You get a nice sense of all the work that's gone into it once you seal it. So again, I'm just gonna do this real light. And back way off. And this will just kind of shift the color a little bit. Trick is to do it evenly. So I'll tone down those brighter highlights just a little bit. Which I think is what he's wanting. Yeah, you can see it right there in the shoulders. So again, I'm gonna have to go back and revisit the Gravin Labs Hulk I just finished up. My client wants me to soften some of the shading, and I'm gonna try my best to do that without having to redo all the skin, because that would be a nightmare. But again, when I get a reference, it's a reference. It's not something I'm gonna try to duplicate exactly, just because I'm not that painter. I'm not the guy who did that reference photo, that reference paint. So again, it's a reference. It's like, hey, here's something I like. Add your style to it. So that's looking pretty good. It toned it down just a little bit. I'm gonna finish doing this, and then I'll seal it again, and then we'll move on to probably doing the nails. All right, for the nails, I base coated them already, sealed them. And this is like this last Scrap Labs Hulk I did. I have a custom nail color that I mixed up a while ago, a couple builds ago. Base coated in that, sealed it. Now I'm gonna go in like I did on the last Hulk, because my client wants the same thing on these nails as I did on the last one. I'm gonna go in with this Vallejo wash, olive green wash, and we're just gonna kind of build it up. A little bit of time. Kind of like get it, soak it in. Put it on pretty wet, let it flow into the details and everything. I do this about 2 or 3 times, because as it dries it lightens up pretty good. It's very thin, there's not a lot of pigment in it, that's why it's a wash. Like this. I'm just using a lining brush because that's what I grabbed. No reason for it. It's what was close by. So I'll let that sit. If there's any excess on the skin, I'll clean it off after it dries for a little while. I don't like to touch it until it's pretty much dry. And we'll do the same thing on these. And the process will be the same on the fingernails. But it's easier to show on the toenails because I don't have to hold it while I do this. I can leave it on the base. I've got some tape on the base because as I seal each layer and stuff, I don't want the paint coming off the bottom of the foot onto the base or vice versa, so I just put some tape down to help prevent that a little bit. Already this looks 1,000 times better than the original paint. So I like to let it sit there because it gets into all those little sculpted details in the nails and around the nail bed. And you can see over here, it dries fairly quick, even though I'm putting it on wet. It's mostly carrier, there's not much pigment in this. That's why I do it 2 or 3 times. Just build it up slowly. And dab it on too. Alright, so I'm going to do this to the toenails and the fingernails, and then once they're dry I'll seal them, and then we'll dry brush the details on. Alright, so I did the washes, dried them, let them dry, sealed them, and now I'm going in and doing the highlighting. So the first one we're going in is with Vallejo heavy brown right there. So just real lightly with the brush, put a little bit on, and just using the flat part of the brush, or just, oops, way too much. And that's why we seal things. So I can go back and just take it off with the Q-tip. Then it's a pretty dry brush. We're going to go in here and just kind of hit the top, and I'll start bringing out the details. Like so, and then I got to clean up the edge here a little bit. Q-tip is like my favorite friend for cleaning up little edges. Like a little scrub brush. And then I'm going to get, like I did on previously, just a very small amount of this heavy golden brown. And once we seal those, we'll go in with, we'll darken the nail beds. Like that. And clean up the edges. Like so. I'll just show this one foot on camera and I'll do the rest off because it's the same process. That little nail's hard to get. Alright, so just like that. Go with my little Q-tip scrub brush and clean up the edges. And then that'll get sealed. And then we'll dirty the nail bed. So I'm going to do the rest of the nails like this, and then we'll show you how we dirty them up. Okay, so the last step on the nails is just to go over on the nail beds a little bit more and dirty them up. So these have been sealed, and I'm going in with some oil. This is a Starship Filth. I think that's the color. But it's kind of a really dark green. It's perfect for this. So I'm going to go in here and dirty up the nail bed. I just put a little bit around the edges like this. And I take another brush. Just kind of blend it in. Just like that. Oils are awesome. I freaking love them. They're actually one of the easiest types of paints I've ever used. Because the great thing about them is, like, let's say I put this on here, and I could let it, if I don't seal it, I could let it sit here for a week and come back and rework it and just reactivate it with mineral spirits, but I don't ever do that. Again, I just take some with a little thinner on it, put a nail bed, and then I use another brush to soften it. If I get too much, I can just wipe some of it off. Q-tip. Just like that. I just got in a skin set of oils. I've been wanting to get them for a very long time. But they're actually, to get the set, it's actually kind of hard to find from 502. And a lot of times people are selling, they're selling for way more than what they should for. They'll sell for $50 or $60 for the set when they should be about $40 for the set. So I finally found one on eBay for what it should be with free shipping. So those came in the other day, so I'm looking forward to trying those out on some flesh tones. Mainly just because of the ease of blendability. Right now these are going on a little too wet, so I'll get some that's not as thinned, and then there we go, and they blend much easier. They're great for doing washes and stuff. But like super quick, I mean, it goes real fast to do that. Again, I just used a piece of cardboard, and actually I put this oil on here a week ago when I was working on the other Hulk, and I just put some mineral spirits on it, reactivated it. And from what I understand, that these 502 oils, they dry faster than like if you were to get Winsor Newton. I have some Winsor Newton, but they're crazy expensive. A little tube of Winsor Newton can be, especially if you get like titanium white, that's like $50-$60 for a little tube of titanium white. I don't know why that is. Something to do with the pigment, I don't know. But, you know, you'll get a tube of oils and they'll last you forever. Most guys that model and use oils like the way I use them, you'll buy a set of oils and you'll never have to replace them. Just like that. Dirtied them up and blended them into the nail bed. So look good. I'll do that on the fingernails. I'll hit it with a hair dryer for a few minutes because it is an oil. You should really let it sit for 24 hours, but I put them on thin, I hit them with a hair dryer for a few minutes, and I seal them, and I haven't had a problem. So once I do that, I think I'm going to, I might either base coat the hair. What time is it? That's 6:44. I've been going on this for about 10 hours today. May do the hair, which will leave the rest of the portrait in the base tomorrow, because my goal is to get this done in 2 days, which I can do. I did actually missed it on some more olive. The more I looked at this, I wanted, and my client texted me, I just make sure it's got olive tint to it. So I missed some more olive onto it and just kind of toned it down a little bit. It looks really good. So I hope he likes it because I think it looks fantastic. So after this, we'll seal it and then I'll probably do the hair. Okay, so one thing I did last night before I went to bed is my client wanted him to have a sheen to him, kind of like a semi-gloss, so I sprayed him with a Krylon satin finish, so now his skin has got this kind of sheen to him. I personally don't like that look, but he wanted to look kind of like he's sweating, so that's what we went with. So it's dried overnight, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off the pans with silly putty and get those sprayed. So once I get it masked off with silly putty, I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do there, because I'm going to do something similar to the last pants I did, but not quite as vibrant. So we're going to kind of keep it a little more on the muted purple side, but we're going to go in there and do some weathering and stuff and make them look like more like real pants rather than these sculpted pants. But the sculpt on them is good, but we're going to bring out some more of the details. So once I get back done masking this, we'll spray the pants, and then after the pants, the only thing left on him is his teeth, and then we'll do the base. So let's get the pants done first. Okay, so that took, how long did that take me? It is 11:45. That took me about 3 hours to mask this and get the base coat done. So I'm doing these pants exactly the same way I did on the last Grabbing Labs Hulk. My client wants those. So this has been masked off and base coated with GarageKits.us semi-transparent number 5 cool gray. Now we're going to go in with semi-transparent cool gray number 7. And we're going to do the shadows. Just like we did on the first one, I'm going to hit the deep shadows first. And then we're going to do the muscle. So hit the deep shadows first. Like the wrinkles, stuff like that underneath the legs, the undercuts. And then we'll bring in some of the muscle detail. So I'll just show a little bit of this on camera, because again, I got to be able to pick them up and move them around. So like, let me get this kind of dialed in here a little bit. So when I say deep shadows, I mean like in here in the wrinkles, these are going to go the darkest. And underneath the backside of the leg. So we're going to hit that pretty good. Hit this shadow a little, maybe not quite as dark because it's not so recessed, but I'll fade it out like this. Again, right in here, hit this a little heavier. There's a bunch of little wrinkles sculpted in right here that you really can't see until you get a base coat of gray down. Pretty subtle, but they're there. So hit those. So hit all the wrinkles first, and then they go bring out the muscles, because anywhere the wrinkle is deeper, they'll just get a little bit darker, which will make sense later after we put the color down. The back of the pants are some wrinkles right here on the pockets. Hit those a little bit. So I'm gonna do as much as I can while he's on the base, and then I'll take him off and move him around. Once I get the pants sprayed, I'm gonna seal them and do the base while it dries, and then the last thing I'll do is the teeth. The teeth take me a long freaking time. Everything takes me a long time. nothing is fast. Just trying to keep everything from freezing here. We're going through for Texas, some pretty severe weather right now. It's like I'm just north of Dallas, and we've been dealing with temperatures in the single digits, which is very rare here. So, like, I got family members coming over because their power's out. And they haven't had heat in like 24 hours. So my mother-in-law's here, her power's out. So yeah, it's kind of crazy right now here in Texas. About 3 inches of snow on the ground, which is a lot for us. So, all right, so I'm going to continue doing the shading, and then we'll come back and lay down the purple. Okay, so I have a house full of people, so I'm not going to record anymore today because there's a lot of stuff going on. But I'm going to get everything finished up, and then I'll show you the finished product when I'm done, because I should have this wrapped up today. But I got the purple down, looks good. Now I'm going to go through and do the same thing I did on the last one. I'm going to mix up kind of the light blue purple highlight, dry brush it on there, show some weathering, and bring out some of the details. And then I'll paint the base and do the teeth, and then I'll show it to you when I'm done. All right, so this Hulk is a wrap. Just took photos, sent them to my client, and he loves it. So it looks really good. This is my lighting setup upstairs in my work area. It's really tight, but it's too cold to photograph in the garage. So I did a little makeshift photo studio up here, but it looks really good. So last things I did was to finish up the teeth and the eyes, and I didn't record that. It was just too loud in here the other night to do that. So, but I think you can get a good idea of what they look like. So everything got completely repainted. Hair, teeth, eyes, skin, pants, nails, base, everything. So this was about a 20-hour project. So pretty good. 2 days, 2 full days of work to get him done, and I think he looks great. So initially he was like really lime green, and the pants were really kind of a pale lavender, and the base had no detail painted into it, and the nails were just green like his skin. So we went in and changed that all up. Just got off the phone with my client, and I told him that once he gets this in person, and even the photos, it's hard to pick up all the details, but you'll see all the veining and all the fleshy stuff I did underneath beforehand. And he asked for the kind of the gloss sheen to it, and he was concerned that was too glossy, but in person, it doesn't look as shiny as it does in photos. You get a strobe light on something like that, or even my work lights, and it looks like really high gloss, but it's not. It's like a semi-gloss finish, so I think it looks pretty close to what the reference he sent me. I personally don't like this look because a flat or a matte finish really shows off shading more, so all that effort is seen better in a flat or matte finish, but I understand why he wanted this look. Pants turned out really nice deep purple with all the shading and weathering on them. You can really tell all the different tones and stuff in the back here look really good. This thing had a ton of veins on it. I made them look really natural, so they don't, and just so they're not like highways on his skin. But yeah, there he is. Yeah, it's a great sculpt. The factory paint just sucked. So it's amazing what a good paint job can do to or a shitty paint job can do to a sculpt. You got a great sculpt and shitty paint, it doesn't matter. Same thing with a shitty sculpt. Shitty sculpt and great paint doesn't matter because it's not going to help. So you kind of need both. But there you go. So everyone who watched, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Next project is a 1/4 scale Spider-Man from Xenart. It's a kit that I've owned for several years. Had someone contact me to do it, so I'm actually going to convert it to a symbiote Spider-Man, and that'll be the next series of videos, so stay tuned for that. As always, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time. Bye.